is the second part of your notes for Thursday. We are doing 2.4. We're just going to do part A today, so hopefully you got your vocabulary in. We are now going to be on the next page in your composition book, so let me go ahead and pull up my composition book here. We are on pages 108 and 109. Let's go ahead and have those ready. So 108, title, 2.4, connecting. Those are two N's. I apologize. Let me fix that real quick. This tablet sometimes is not as accurate as I like it to be. Just kind of go with me here. All right, connecting. It's also on the top of your notes, by the way. Connecting tables. Graphs. And equations. And on page 109 is the textbook pages we'll be using today, which is pages 36 and 37. So I'll give you a few minutes to write that down and also get out your textbooks, page 36 and 37. All right, so we're going to go back to that day we did the walkathon and we were talking about Alana and her plan and the other kids' plans and how that all related. If you remember, one student just got a flat donation. No matter how many laps they did, it didn't matter. They were getting the same amount of money. We had some kids who got a flat rate of something a little smaller, but each lap they were able to gain more money. And then some students only got money if they walked the laps, no flat rate. So that's kind of what you see here with your three plans. So if you're looking at page 36, it says, Alana's pledge plan from 1.3, if you remember all this. The A represented the amount raised and the D represented the distance. So she had an equation of A equaled 5 plus half or 0.5 D. So that means she got a $5 flat rate just for doing the walkathon. But if she wanted to make more money, she could make 50 cents per lap that she completed. So if you're looking at the table or the little graph there on page 36, you can kind of see that she starts off not at 0, she starts off at 0.5, and then at some point she gets to 14.12. And we're going to kind of talk about that. So let's look at down at the bottom where it says problem 2.4 in the gray box. Consider the following pledges. In each equation, Y is the amount pledged in dollars by each sponsor, and X is your distance. Now again, it says kilometers. We're just going to call them laps because that's what we called them in the last lesson. So part A, we're just going to do part A for today. Part A says, for each pledge plan, follow these 4 questions and solve them out. Now, the first one is to write an equation, which I already did for you. So we can go ahead and call this one up here A1. We already did that. It's just the equations. So those are the 3 plans. We have Y equals 5x minus 3. Plan 2 says Y equals negative x plus 6. That is a negative x. And for plan 3, Y just equals 2. All right, so let's talk about each of those plans. Just by looking at the equations, can we tell what's going on? So with plan 1, this person has a negative 3, so they're already down $3, but each lap, they get $5. So they will quickly redeem that money, okay? And then plan 2, we have a negative x, so negative amount of money is being taken out, but you have a flat rate of 6. And then with plan 3, Y just equals 2. So let's talk about each pledge plan. So A2 says make a table for the values of x from negative 5 to 5. So they're telling us how big to make this table. Now I'm going to try my best and squeeze it onto these little boxes with writing in a tablet. You guys can make it a lot neater. So I'm just going to draw a line straight down here. and I have an x, and I have a y. Now they want us to go from -5 to 5. So -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will squeeze on there right at the very end there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make my tables for all of them. I'm not going to write x, y at the top because, as you can tell, that's taking up some room. But we know that the first column is x, the second column is y. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here, -5, -4, -3, -2, and so on. All right, so I'll give you a few minutes to catch up. If you need more time, just ask the sub to pause the video so you can fill this in. All right, so with plan 1, I'm going to do 5 times the x and then subtract 3. So whatever the x number is, I'm going to multiply it by 5 and then subtract 3 from that total. All right, so 5 times -5 gives me -25 because a positive and a negative equals a negative. So we have -25 minus 3. Since they're both negative, we're going to add, and I get -28. -4, so that's 5 times -4 gives me -20. Minus 3, add the two together, I get -23. -3, I have 5 times -3, that's going to give me -15. Minus the 3 gives me -18. 5 times the -2 is a -10. Minus 3, -13. 5 times the -1 is -5. -5 minus 3 gives me -8. 5 times 0 is 0. 0 take away 3 is -3. 5 times 1 is 5, minus 3 is 2, and I'll let you go ahead and finish that table. All right, let's look at plan 2. Now we have a -x, which basically means -1 plus 6. So I have -5 times -1 gives me a +5, and then add that to 6, and I get 11. Positive 11. -4 times -1 is 4. Plus 6 is 10. -3 times -1 is 3. Plus 6 is 9. -2 times -1 is 2. 2 plus 6 is 8. -1 times -1 is 1. Plus 6 is 7. 0 times -1 is 0. So 0 plus 6 is 6. 1. Now we have +1 times a -1, which is going to give me a -1. So -1 plus 6 is going to give me 5. All right, I'll let you go ahead and finish up that table. All right, let's look at the next plan. Okay, we have, plan is y equals 2. There's no x. So where do I plug in the x value at? Well, if there's no x in the equation, then is there any place for me to put these numbers in? No. If they say y equals 2, that means the whole y column going straight down is 2, all the way down. No matter what you do, you're going to get the answer of 2. So all the way down, just 2's all the way down. All right, so now let's talk about sketching a quick graph. I'm going to try my best to make it as neat as possible, but please, you guys use straight edges and straight lines to make it nice and neat. First thing I want you to do is kind of make a little bit of almost the L shape that we're used to, but we're going to cross it at the very end here, just like so. All right, we have 0 here at the corner, as always. So I'm just going to put a little 0. Okay? Now, across the bottom here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can go ahead and write those numbers in. And going up the side, I'm going to count by 5s. I have 5, 10, 15. Let's stop at 20. That's good. So I know I'm kind of cutting mine off here. 5, 10, 15, and 20. Just try and squeeze them on there. Now the reason we have this little tail on the bottom here is I do want a couple negatives. I'm just going to put one right here, and we're going to call it -3. Since I do have some -3 answers in my table, you have to have negative parts on your graph. Now again, as we've said many times before, you do not need to graph the entire thing. You just need to graph a few. But I do want to graph one of the negatives. So with my -3, it was 0, -3. So I'm actually going to put a dot right there. I went over 0, but down to -3 this time. My next coordinate I'm going to use is my +2 to +5. So hopefully you had that one here. At +2, you had a 5 over here. So I'm going to go over 2 up to 5. There's my second dot. And my final dot will be this last one here, my last coordinate, which you should have as 5 and 22. So I'm going to kind of guess that, eyeball it. All right, take your straight edge. Hopefully yours looks a lot better. And you have a better looking arrow than I have. There we go. Connect your 3 dots. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and set up the next graph. All right, so those of you who are moving a little faster, the next graph here, again, we have our 0, 0, and then we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 along the bottom. I'm going to count by 2s this time because my numbers aren't that big. So 2, 4, 6, and let's stop with 8. All right, again, you don't need to graph the whole table, but I always like to start with my 0, and I have 0, 6. Let me switch colors real quick so we can see this a little better. 0, 6, so my dot's going to go right here. It's going to go over 0, up 6. The next one I want to use is my 4. If you got way down here, your 4 should be about a 1, or should be 1. Or 2. I apologize, 2. 2. All right, so over 4, up 2. All right. And then I also have, let's go ahead and do the 2 as well. The 2, 4. So over 2, up 4, because I do need 3 dots. There we go. Okay, take your straight edge, line those up, make sure you get yourself an arrow. All right, now for plan 3, if you can tell our numbers are very small, it's actually the whole same number, 2. So across the bottom there, I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't have any negatives to worry about, just like in the previous plan of plan 2. I really didn't have any negatives to really deal with as far as answers, so that's why I didn't go into the negative zone. So let's go ahead and start. I have a 0. I want to use my 0. So I'm going to go 0, 2, way up here. And now I can pick 2 more. Doesn't matter. I'm going to do 2, 2. And how about 5, 2? So if you notice, because y is 2, I get a straight line. It's going to be a completely horizontal graph. All right, so let's look at A4. It says, do the y values increase, decrease, or stay the same as the x values increase? How can you find the answer using a table, a graph, or an equation? Now, since it's asking for a lot of things, I'm actually going to switch out of my notes. You guys write right here in the little boxes. I obviously don't have enough room, especially with a tablet. So I'm going to open up my composition book pages I was using here with you guys. Okay, I do have to erase, well, I'll leave that just in case you need it. I'm going to put mine over here, but just know you're writing yours right in your notes. Please don't write on your composition book because you're going to need this for another day. All right, so let's talk about that first box. So the first box wants to know, how does it all relate as far as, is it increasing or decreasing? What's going on with the graph? What's going on with the table? So, as you can tell in the first graph, we are definitely increasing here. All right, it's going up. So, we're going to say increase. And as a reminder, you're writing these right on your notes. I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to pull it back up. Okay, you're writing these right on your notes in that little box at the bottom there. All right, so it is increasing. The line is going up. Let's talk about the graph. The graph, how do we know? Because the line's going up. That's how we know it's increasing. The line goes up. How do we know? By looking at the table. So when we look at the table for the first plan, look over here. It's kind of off to the side. The numbers are increasing. They're going from negatives to positives. So we're going to say the numbers go up. And therefore, another way to look at it with the equation. The equation's over here off to the side, but if you notice the 5, it's 5x. The x is positive. So that's what gives it away for the equation. If the x is positive, obviously, my line's going to go up. All right, so that's the first box you were supposed to fill in. I'm going to switch colors here. The second box. Let's look at the graph. How do we can tell that this is going to be an increase or a decrease? Well, the graph is going down, so we're going to say this is a decrease. By looking at the graph, how can we tell? Well, I think you all know the answer to this. The line goes down. How can we tell by looking at the table? Well, look at the table for the second one. We have 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. What's happening with my numbers? The numbers are going down. That's how you know this line's going to go down. And how about just looking at the equation? Well, if you look at the equation, what is x? X is negative. It has a negative in front of it. So that gives it away that it's going to be going down. All right, now this last box I'm not going to write on here for you because it's pretty obvious. Is this an increase or a decrease or stay the same? I'll let you go ahead and write that answer in the last box. Am I increasing, decreasing, or staying the same? And how can you tell by looking at the graph, the table, and the equation? All right, go ahead and fill that in. When you are all done, do not tape in these notes just yet. Just fold them and stick them in your composition book because tomorrow we will finish it up with the other side of those notes, parts B and D. And you'll also do E in your composition book. So if you finish early, fold it, put it in your composition book, and go ahead and start on your homework. Have a good day.